Hi, my name is Sean, and thank you for joining me in part 2 of the Stone of Life. In part 1, we covered the truths of life, and in part 2, we shall be looking at the values, mindset, life force, and what do you actually want. I want to point out that anytime I'm saying you and I'm addressing you, I'm really addressing me, and that goes for the first video as well. So whenever I'm saying you, I really mean me. Let's look at the first one, life force. This is part of the stone of life that comes from the Chimp paradox. As I explained in the first video, the life force is you're on your deathbed, you're speaking to your great-great-grandchild or great-great-grand niece or nephew or something like that, and you have 60 seconds to give them some life advice. I've got a very short one here that's only 10 seconds long, if that. It's one that I came up with when I did the test, and it reads, build a fit mind and body. This is the most important thing, and that everything in life is about finding a balance. I have another version of my life force that I can read in 60 seconds, but it's not one that I could come up with in 60 seconds. I will add it to this later as well, though. Test yourself out, clear your mind, give yourself 60 seconds, and imagine you're speaking to one of your young family members. You're on your deathbed, and you've just got 60 seconds to give them as much information as possible about help on life. Moving on to values. A lot of these are kind of overlapping between values and mindset, beliefs and truths. A lot of them do overlap, and sometimes there are more than just overlapping. Sometimes I have things in both of them, but they're more like the difference between objectives and goals. Sometimes they are quite similar. I'm going to read through each one of these. Some of them I have a lot to say on, and some of them I don't have as much to say on. And same with the truths. Some of these I feel really strongly about, some of them not so much, but strong enough that they make it onto the list. Starting with the first one. Never attribute malice what can be explained by incompetence. I don't know the origin of this, but it was given to me by a close friend. I tell this to myself when I'm communicating with an individual, any individual. I believe in the moment that they are being malicious, they're being evil, they're being nasty, they're being something like that. But in reality, they're probably just being incompetent. And that goes for me as well. I may do something where I'm being incompetent, but someone may read that as me being malicious or nasty or one of these things. Don't get me wrong, people are malicious and nasty and all these other things. Give them the benefit of the doubt, and realistically, the chances are they are probably just being incompetent rather than being malicious. Moving on to the next one. Your mind is more valuable than anything. Your ability to control it is the greatest skill you could ever have. That one kind of does what it says in the tin, and I genuinely believe that. Moving on to the next one. Are the majority of people good or bad? I don't know, but the majority of people optimize. Where this comes from is the discussion, you've probably seen it, where the question is posed as, are the majority of people good or are the majority of people bad? And then you've got optimists that say one thing, you've got pessimists that say another thing. I don't like to break it down into good or bad. I truly believe that most people do optimize. And I don't just mean optimization of energy or time or something like that. People will do what they think is best. And if you've ever read The Paradox of Choice, the book, sometimes the lesser good option is actually the better option, because if you can do something today, that could be more valuable than doing something better later on, because there is this time element to it. And sometimes putting 10 times more effort into something is not going to give you 10 times more results. You may find it where 10 times more effort only gives you 5% more benefit, and that 5% more benefit for this particular thing is negligible. So really sometimes the lesser option is better, and I truly believe that most people most of the time are optimizing for their own needs. Moving on to the next one. Being unfaithful is wrong. And when I say unfaithful, I mean to yourself, I mean to others, people close to you. I personally feel that it's wrong. There may be a grey area there for some people. There's possibly a grey area there for me. There's an entire universe inside everyone's mind. This kind of ties into the one on the truths about you've only got your own experience. The entire universe exists in your own experience. It's in your own mind. It's not to suggest that it doesn't exist outside of your mind. This is just a thought of mine when I'm looking at people and animals and any living creature, there's an entire universe in there. Every single living creature is so complex and there's so much going on there. And I'm saying it's a good thing. I just like the idea of this. I like the thought of this. And that's really just why it's there. Needs and loves are greater than wants and likes. This has been taken from a Netflix documentary about personal finance. I don't have the exact name for it. I can find it if you want. And what it talks about is prioritizing your needs and your loves over your wants and your likes. For example, you need to have shelter, you need to have food, you need to have clothing, stuff like that. You may love, let's say it's going on a skiing trip. That's not one of my loves at all, but it might be yours. Your love might be something that's more extravagant that takes a longer time to save up for. It's not needed, but you love it and it takes time to save. And then you have wants and likes. You're out in the shop, you see something you want or you see something you like. It probably costs a very small amount. It could be something like £5 or under £100 or some sort of price that's very much manageable today. It's very much manageable this week. It's not going to break your budget or your bank this month. But if you're doing that every day or every week or every month and you keep doing these wants and likes, you're not going to be able to afford these needs and loves. This one is talking about money originally, but I still think that it applies to life in general because it's not just saving your money, but it's also about saving your mental bandwidth. Don't get me wrong, I do a lot of things that I want and I like, but I try and focus more on my needs and my loves. Wealth is health, money, and time. Often we talk about wealth and we think about money, but it's all three of these things. For me, it's about finding balance. I'm not going to break my back earning as much money as possible. I'm just simply not going to do that because it's going to eat up more of my time and it's certainly going to eat up a lot of at least my mental health and then probably my physical health too. So that's no use. I want to have a fine balance between the three of those things. Moving on to the next one. Support response is greater than shift response. This is taken directly from the listening book, I call it the listening book because I'm not actually keen on the name of it. It's called You're Not Listening. And in the book they talk about providing a support response rather than a shift response. Here's a very quick example. When you're speaking with someone and they're telling you about something, don't change the subject or don't make it about you. Support the conversation. Yes, there will be times where this doesn't work, but do it where you can. And here's the real example from the book that they give. The person says, I watched this movie last night about owls. And the other person, if they were to do a shift response, they would say something like, I don't like owls, or that doesn't sound great, or I watched this thing last night. That's a shift response. A support response would be like, how was it? Yeah, I added that to my list. That's interesting. Tell me more about that. Did you watch it because it looked interesting, or are you interested in owls? That sounds really interesting. One of those responses. Moving on to the next one. What happened and how it felt is greater than incidental details. I've ripped this one right out of the listening book or You're Not Listening book. When it comes to communicating with others, the really important things are what happened and how it felt. The incidental details such as maybe exact location or some sort of arbitrary detail is not nearly as important. And sometimes asking about these incidental details when someone's telling you about something, especially a sensitive topic, it can really kill the conversation. It can make the connection between you more difficult. Technology isn't bad for us per se. Some technology may be bad for us. What I'm talking about here is from the book Stolen Focus that I've referenced before. I don't think that technology is bad, but I think that sometimes the way we use technology can be bad. I've completely removed myself from all social media and I feel better for it. That's all I'll say on that one, but I could expand on it more. Mind wandering is valuable. I actually got this from a book called 59 Seconds. It's a wee bit dated. I would still recommend checking it out. It's a book about psychology. One of the topics in the book is about focus and mind wandering. I truly believe that mind wandering is a valuable thing to do. In this book, 59 Seconds, they talk about mind wandering as a way for the brain to create neural pathways. Moving on. Exit speed is greater than entry speed. I've made this up. It's kind of like a proverb, I suppose. I got it from racing. If you follow motorsport, typically exit speed is greater or more important than entry speed. What I'm really trying to say here is sometimes when you start a journey, you start off slow, you start off not great. That's not really that important. What is important is later on, and later on is infinitely later on. Don't worry about the progress that you're making now. The progress later will be greater. That's all I'll say about that one. The journey is greater than the destination. I've always felt this, and I've read loads of books on the subject. I'm currently reading a book, I believe it is called Agency in Games, and it talks about the state of play in the game. The example that they talk about in the book is basketball. The preliminary goal is to get the ball in the hoop. But that's not really the goal of basketball, because if that was the goal, if that was what you were trying to achieve exclusively, you would go to a basketball court with a ladder late at night when no one was there with the ball, and you would just feed the ball through the loop constantly to your heart's content. Although that is a somewhat arbitrary goal, it's far more complex than that. So sometimes the destination might just be the end of that journey, but the journey itself is the thing that we're after. And I truly value that. And I truly believe that as well. And again, these maybe belong in the belief section. Either way, wanting what you have is greater than having what you want. This comes from a Harvard course I did over lockdown. I forget the woman's name that runs the course. She's really famous in the space of happiness, and I'll try and explain how it works. Here's one way of doing it. You look around your house, you have all these items, you have all these objects, clothes, whatever it is, and you want those things. It may take some convincing, but you want to have those things and you're content with that. The flip side of that, of having what you want, is you're looking at the next thing, the next car, the next job, the next TV, the next new piece of technology. You're looking at the next thing you want and then you go and get it. This is what is going to lead to the hedonic treadmill, which is also something that's talked a lot about. It's talked about in a lot of books that I've read, but it's talked a lot about in that book, 59 Seconds. The hedonic treadmill. If you go and upgrade one of your technologies, let's say, then it's going to adjust your hedonic baseline. You may have been better off enjoying the thing that you already had. Moving on to the next one. Eudaimonic is greater than hedonic. There is, of course, a balance. Eudaimonic means you're doing things for others. Hedonic means you're doing something for yourself. I'm not suggesting that you just become some selfless saint or whatever, but typically we feel better, and there's science to back this up, when we do nice things for others. This was in the happiness course that I did, and it's also mentioned in this book, 59 Seconds, and I'm sure I've read it elsewhere as well. Doing nice things for others is going to make you feel better than doing something nice for yourself. Again, there is a balance in there. Now you'll notice that this one's in yellow, and it's because this software I'm using for this mind map is not the best. It's not super user friendly. I can change it into pink or purple, but it's yellow for just now. Practice is greater than competition. I maybe need to reword this. It's another way to just say that the journey is greater than the destination. What I'm trying to achieve here is not putting things on a pedestal. You don't need to be the greatest. You don't even need to be better than anyone else. You don't need to compete. You can if you want, and that's great. But the actual practice of something, in my opinion, has more value than competing in something. And that concludes the value section. Moving on to the mindset section. The structure is from the Chimp paradox, as in the how do you see yourself, how do you see others, how do I see the world? That is from the Chimp paradox. I filled it in with my own words. What I've written here, I do believe, but in the moment I don't always feel them. So although I do believe these and I came up with these, I don't always feel them, and I want to be able to feel them more often. That's why I've written them down, just so I can remind myself. Start at the top. How do you see yourself? I am an adequate, valuable, and intelligent person who wishes the best for everyone. That's true, but when I'm in a bad mood, that is maybe not so true. I don't always feel that way. Even though I believe it, I don't always feel it. And I would like to get to the stage where I do feel it, even when I'm in a bad mood. How do you see others? Others are wonderful, unique, and infinitely interesting. There is a universe going on inside people's minds. They are incredible, and so am I. Everyone has the potential to be great. Everyone serves a purpose, even if that purpose is yin and yang. What I mean by that one, without going too into depth here, sometimes there are people, and they may have attributes that I don't like, I don't agree with, but it's not to say they don't play a role. They do play a role, or at least even their negative attributes play a role. For example, previously when I spoke about when I see the attribute that sometimes people have where they have an opinion on something they're not educated on, when I see that attribute that I don't like, that reminds me not to do that. Even though what they're doing, I would argue, is negative, I'm actually taking a positive from that. Extrapolating from that example, everyone plays a role. And I don't want to suggest that people are good and bad, or even that attributes are good and bad. It's just that I, in that previous example, have perceived that attribute as bad. That's just my own perception, and that's only my perception currently. I may change that later on. How do you see the world? The world, although sometimes hostile, is full of opportunity and curiosity. When you're in a situation which you cannot change, act and feel as though this is what you chose. This is from Zen Buddhism. You're probably familiar with this one. I've managed to basically trick myself using this several times. I'm not sure, but I think it might be an NLP, a neuro-linguistic programming technique, and I have managed to achieve it a few times. So it's something that it's a wee thing I do. It's a wee game that I play with myself. And finally, in the mindset section, 1, establish your rules. 2, never break your rules. And 3, learn when to break your rules. And this is from a book called Unknown Market Wizards. And the book is about trading the stock market. But when I heard this, I actually kind of feel that it's applicable to anything. So I put it in here. Moving on to, what do you actually want? We often find ourselves trying to improve our situations, whether that's health and well-being, financially, whatever it could be. If you've ever tried to improve your life using a physical item, like trying to buy a new TV or a new computer or new clothes or some sort of new physical item that's going to improve your well-being. Yes, items can help your quality of life. It can fix pain points or it can enable you to do things. This is true, and there is a balance between these things. But if you've ever tried to cheer yourself up with a physical item, you might find that you enjoy this in the moment or for a short while. General situation hasn't necessarily improved that much. And when I'm not feeling great, no physical item is really going to make me feel that much better. Thinking about what I genuinely want to achieve in life, and I don't mean at the end of my life or some sort of goal in the future. I mean that too, but I mean from moment to moment, day to day, things that I want to be achieving, but achieving on a constant basis, on a perpetual basis, not some sort of event that I ramp up to and make an achievement, but more like an ongoing state. Let me read these to you. I want to achieve a state of flow, not necessarily constantly, as I don't know if that's even possible, but I want to have practice of going into a state of flow, and I want to be able to easily go into that state when I want. I want to have a sensation of progression. Notice that I've not put I want progression. I want to have a sensation of progression. I would love to have progression too, but I want to just feel that I'm working towards something. Not some great, wonderful achievement. It doesn't need to be something massive. It can just be something small. For example, I regularly stretch, and so I'm progressively maintaining my flexibility and mobility. I might be increasing something there too. I want to experience the creativity and the creations of others. I want to explore my own creativity. I want to find balance. This one and many of these are very vague. I've left them vague on purpose, but I want to be able to find the balance in most things in life. I want to be able to control my mind. I want to be able to control my own thoughts, emotions, feelings, and behaviors. That's like the main thing. This one here, this line is kind of like what this whole thing is about. Back when I turned 29 and someone asked me, what do you want to achieve by the time you're 30? This is when I came up with that. I've not mastered these things, far from it, but I definitely am in a position where I have significantly more control over these things, and I'm happy with the amount of control that I have of myself. I would like to have more, and it's not something I'll ever stop practicing. I'll never get to a stage and say, I've got enough control of these things, and I'll just park that for the day. This is just something that I will constantly practice. And this ties into the one earlier on about the values, where practice is more important than competition. It's about practicing these things for me. It's not about competing in them. I'm not trying to be more controlling of myself more than anyone else. I'm just trying to practice this. I want to be okay with the evils in the world, including poor choices of others. And by poor choices, I mean according to me. These are not objective poor choices. They are subjective to myself. I see someone making a choice that I disagree with. My goal in life is to be okay with that. And this is so unique to me. And you may be watching this thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? This is one of my own internal demons that I have to battle regularly. I can go into depth on this more if you want me to later on. When others are in a bad mood, I don't want it to affect me. I'm so bad for this. If I'm ever in like a workplace or a social environment and someone's in a really bad mood and they're being a bit snappy or something like that, I can feel my own behavior and thoughts and feelings and emotions. I can feel that changing in response to their mindset and behavior and actions and all these things. And I want to be able to have the strength to just be like, no, like, I'm going to stay in a good mood. I'm going to continue living my life to the fullest. You can just be in a bad mood if you want to. I'm striving for that ability. I don't even think I'm even near getting close to that. I don't even know if it's possible, to be honest with you, but it's something that I'm trying to achieve. I want a sense of belonging with others. I believe I have this, and it is one of these ones where I'm practicing it. It's no achievement. There's not going to be a day where I'm like, wow, I really have that sense of belonging with others. It's more like something I think I have currently, and it's something that I want to continue to work on. I want to have a delayed reaction or response to situations, and I don't mean physically, like I don't mean slow. I mean, I want to be able to read a situation. I want to read a scenario. I want to be cool, calm, and collected. I want to be able to have the ability to think logically in that moment and make the choice I would make later on. Sometimes you'll be in a situation and adrenaline's pumping and you make a choice and it was the wrong choice, but then later on when you calm down, you think, oh, that would have been a better choice. And that better choice is something you would have come up with anyway, but it was difficult in the moment because you were reacting to the situation. And I want to have that strength and that ability and that level of wisdom to just be able to make cool, calm, and collected thoughts in the heat of the moment. Again, this is one where I think I am achieving this. I do have a sense of that, and I'm a lot better at it nowadays than I used to be. I feel like there's a long way up though. I feel like there's still more ground to cover in front of me than there is behind me. Quite happy with where I am with that one, but I would just like to just sharpen that tool if that is at all possible. That's all I'll be covering today on the Stone of Life. Next time, I'm going to look at some proverbs, talk about why they're there, my beliefs, and then I will work on my strengths and weaknesses, my state of play, and my human interaction more for the next video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Tell me some of your values or your life force or your truths of life or one of these ones. If you want to, you don't need to put the comment in the comment section. You can contact me privately and I would really appreciate that, and you don't need to do that at all either. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll maybe see you next time.